So continued. So we just go back to that segue because segues are really important. So we're asking about her experience of learning about brain art, um, noticing when she did the Havening touch that it got larger, it amplified. So asking, is it good or useful to know you can do that? Well, it is for people because it's amazing to discover that you can feel good just through cueing and that you can use the Havening touch. Havening touch kind of helps you kind of get in the zone, get in the flow, take the time to do it. But really, it's about the cueing. It's about activating those receptors so that you get that brain art and then observing it and spending the time in it. So she says yes. Um, I've yet to meet anybody who doesn't say yes. So then we want to generate lots of LTP. So we're gonna explore it. So we're repeating it. So we're saying, okay, you've learned about brain art, learned about Havening touch, and this amplify technique. It's really, really well done. There are other different Havening techniques which can be used to reduce unwanted brain art. So they're going to reduce it. You imagine that the brain art, you know, that's unwanted can actually be reduced, almost like, in some cases, completely away. Would you like to test that out or explore doing that? Yes, I would. It's very important to get that idea of reduction in. They've learned about amplification, getting bigger. Now we're in reduction. Would you like to test it out? Yeah, I would. Do you have any unwanted brain art in mind? Yes, I do. So she says, a new girl came to my school. I'm my friend, and then her voice breaks. I needed my friend. Voice breaks again. She can't speak. She's got a lump in her throat. That's her autonomic system. Yeah, it's a brain art. She's got tears, and then she's flushed, and she says, "My heart broke, and it is so sore." Now, what's really interesting here, she's talking about present tense. It's hurting now as she experiences that brain art. So, there in the yellow, that's your segue, that all important moving. So you can only do this if they have experienced amplification. They have to have experienced the amplification and learned it that way so that you can then introduce the idea of reduction. So you have to have the first bit first so that you can do a segue. Then you can do a segue and it makes sense. And they've got the courage to do it. They know about cues, they know about brain art, they know how to access it confident, they know how to use the V scale, they've got skills, they know how to do it. The practitioner knows them a bit, you know how they respond to cues, you know how quick they are, you know if it's more like kind of felt sense or more signaling or more thoughts or internal dialogue or pictures or kind of just knowing. You know those things about them. So before you go into the event havening, you know what's going to be easy for them, and you know how to help them have a comfortable time. It really makes a difference having that knowledge. So yes, she's places it on the V scale. She places her broken heart, her sore heart, on the other side of the V scale, up high. It's a powerful brainer, it's a powerful response. So for us, for the practitioner, we're been tracking, yeah? So we think about the tracking. There we are in Quok 2. We're right along at the end of Quok 2. We're tracking. And it reminds us that we saw those responses earlier when we were playing the favourites game. We saw the responses to talk about friends and dogs. Let's go back there. We saw that. New girl, we saw it. But we waited till now. And there it is again. Comes to mind again because it's present, the receptors there, they're easy to activate. This is an amygdala activation. And so this is just in our mind's eye use. This is a practitioner just tracking, going, right, that makes sense. I heard about the new girl. I heard about the best friend. I saw the response to my cues. So the practitioner can actually use positive reinforcement with this. Now, positive reinforcement is quite particular. So we're just agreeing here, we're saying, yes, that makes sense that it was sore. Actually flipped it into past tense there. It was sore. That might activate a bit, so you have to be careful there. It makes sense that it is sore, would be more correct. So there's a little mistake in my text there. That's how easy it is. So even if you say it was sore and saw her looking disappointed, like you're not in tune with me, you're not really listening to me, you'd just change that. You say it makes sense, it is sore. And then you see a nod and an agreement. So you have to be on your toes and very accurate if you want to be really good. You can ask, is there an image? What's the format like? She knows all of these things from what we did before, so she has a language now she can communicate. So I'm going to ask an opposite here. Is it like an old black and white photo? Because clearly it's not. Clearly it's a big, bright, frightening image that she rocks back from. So I'll say the opposite. And when you say the opposite, sometimes if you get it right, then the person will really affirm what it is that they really access. This is very good for adults. It's not actually normally necessary for children, who will just tell you what they're accessing. So she says, no, it's coloured and it's real seeming. And you can see from her eyes and her expression how she looks, she's accessing it again. You can ask, are you seeing yourself in the brain art? And she says, no, I'm seeing it as if I'm inside myself and it's so sore. So she's experiencing a very powerful brain arts, a very powerful response to these cues. So you want to show you're supportive and you want to show, that you're caring really. So you say you're doing really well. A practitioner says you're doing really well. Can you notice where the middle of the soreness is? Is it okay to ask that? Yes, it's in my chest and it's going round and round. She waves her hand. She's learned how to do all this before, you see, so she can do it. She's confident to do it. She knows it's okay to say these things. So you think you're thoughtful and you say anti-clockwise then, and she nods, so you say well done, and then you reinforce that word that you're using so they know it's going to reduce. Yeah? Would you like to reduce this unwanted brain art? Yes. Yes. And so we see there this sore heart, this broken heart. So you're cueing yourself using that metaphor. Now we're going to do another segue. We're going to segue from this amygdala activated, these receptors in the amygdala are activated, traffic is flowing in them. We now want to segue really as quickly as possible, within like a minute, to using working memory activities to displace, so WMAs. So we could ask, the practitioner could ask, could you give this learning moment a neutral title so we know how to cue it, so you can test the reduction later on? So notice the languaging there, this learning moment, a neutral title so we know how to cue it, so you can test the reduction later on. So we're talking about something that happened in the past. And you can't change that it happened. It happened, other people were there, it all happened, but we can change how we respond to the we can change the receptors. So she says, yes, this new girl arrived. Now this is good because the tense is correct. She's talking about the past. She's not saying, I have trauma, or I'm traumatized. She's saying, yes, this new girl arrived. So you say, thank you, that's ideal, well done. Now, let's have a stretch and change position a bit and let your brain know. Tell yourself that you're going to do something different for a few minutes. We both are, and we can both do this bit together and we'll make it fun. And we're going to activate our brains and use our working memories. If we were in an MRI scanner, it would look like our brains were lighting up. And move your hands around your heads. You will know working memory. You know when somebody gives you too much information at once, like often happens with directions, and you want to remember it all, but you go kind of blank, sort of jammed. And she says to this, yeah, I didn't know it had a name. My friend will be pleased. She thought she was being stupid when that happens. So, working memory activities. So you can use sharing about the working memory activities as your segue into working memory activities, plus a change of position, plus a very clear, we're going to reduce, we're going to do it now, we're going to do it together, and it's only for a few minutes. So that's what your frame makes you very, very clear. So, using working memory activities, WMA, and Havening Touch. So we're going to use a range of fun working memory activities, and this was done for about 7 minutes. Because this was with a child, and it was a really unpleasant thing, I wanted a really, I didn't want to, with an adult you might want to keep checking in so they see the change gradually, but children accept change very openly usually, so we went for about 7 minutes, we probably get a bigger change. So the cues that were avoided were obviously the ones we were working on, so it's new girl and best friend, don't want to cue anything about that, and also the ones that have been a strong response to us. So the ones where we saw confusion, upset, aversion, you want to stay away from that. But that she wasn't really ready to talk about. So we saw that for the dog, something with a dog, something about family, something about school, something about goats. So we don't know anything from the history. We don't know. Talking about dogs, the dogs come in. So we don't know anything about the dog, and we don't know anything about the goats because the parents haven't told us, the school hasn't told us, and she hasn't told us. But we do know there's something going on with the family and with the school. And we want to avoid precious topics, such as the tea and the scones related to her grandmother and the leather chair. These are like quite precious, possibly. Or something like when she won a prize or made a special new friend or something. We want to avoid those things where the receptors are made in elves. So, and we've been doing the tea and scones with the amplify. So we've used that. We've got that in a place. This wants to be different. So we want to work with more neutral things. So things like movement patterns with the Havening Touch, humming different theme tunes with the help of the iPad, imagining picking yellow flowers and heathers, thinking about bees and making honey. And talking, in this case, about what the working memory is. That's something that we can actually do. So after doing that, the practitioner asks her what she thought about doing the working memory activities in Havening Touch. And this can also give you a little bit more working memory activities. And again, it's helping with LTP, so you can just slow down a bit and find out about things. And it also builds communication, and it creates an atmosphere, a whole culture where it's okay to talk about your experience, which is really, really, really useful. So the practitioner asks if she would like to find out the results of the process, and she says, yeah, that's really exciting. And the practitioner says, okay, would you like to use your cue that she made, this new girl arrived, and observe what you notice now. And I can ask a few questions to help you once you get started if you like. So you can tell from that response how independent they are if they want help, and then they will ask for help because you've created a frame that they can ask for help. So you let them go off independently, they know how to cue, they know how to question themselves, they know how to use Kwok-Tu. So yes, she observes and she calibrates. She shares that she cannot access the image. She shares that she feels calm and the pain is gone. So just repeating that again so we can look at it with the V scale. So she says she cues and questions herself, she observes, she calibrates. So she's Kwok-Tuing, she's tracking, she's going to utilise. She shares that she cannot access that image. She feels calm like a tree and the pain is gone. So she's telling us about the brain art, yeah. So then she shares a new narrative. She cries a little bit, but it's different kinds of tears. These are like tears of relief. And she says, the new girl tried hard to make friends with me, but I was upset. The practitioner asks, what were you upset about? She cries and she says the dog's name and that she saw it was horrible and it was her fault. The practitioner asks if she would like to use event havening for those receptors, the process that she's just used, and she thinks it's a good idea. So they move on and they do another EH because it's activated. It's activated with her thinking about it this now. These receptors about the dog are now activated. So you can just flow into that process. So when she checks in this time, she can access her cortex and she reviews the situation. So she's kind of jumping between the two things here, and that's fine. You'll get that. She's just jumping between them. She says, it's all my fault and I've been horrible. I wish we were all friends and for my sister to come home, and she can't. She adds now that she misses her sister, and she adds she's left home, so she's sharing with you. So you can see here on the V scale she chose a tree, and that the tree got bigger, and then she was actually able to share about the dog that she just couldn't talk about before. She wasn't able to tell us about the dog, just unspeakable. So don't always be expecting to be at the top of the V scale when you're at this stage, because the related receptors can be activated, and we're going to see why these relate later on. They relate right to the question, the response to the question that the traditional therapist asked her. So she's still got that broken heart, yeah. She doesn't still have that broken heart. That's what she had there. See it again. So that's her reference to where she was at, and now she's got these trees instead. So that's a huge amount of change, but she's not yet at the top of here. So we've got QOC2 and the risky or rewarding V scale, the mind's eye use. So this is taking us back to what we saw before. And so we saw before that she responded, we're tracking here, we're remembering what we saw before. We saw that she had this aversive response to when we mentioned dog in the favourites game. So the learning experience here is focused on this for event havening. It's about the moment when she saw that her beloved dog being hit by a car on the road, a horrific thing. So that's what it relates to. We saw that then, and of course we weren't going to work on that, we just made a little mental note on that in our internal risky and rewarding scale. So we had that note there. So now it's tallying up. So we understand where this is probably what's happening neurologically. So the practitioner asks her if she can give the learning experience a neutral title. So we're not saying trauma, we're not saying disaster, we're not saying a learning experience a neutral title. She goes, yeah, the corner. The practitioner asks, are you seeing yourself in the brain art? And she answers, no, I'm seeing what happened. It's a close-up, it's detailed, it's coloured. I feel hot, heavy and wobbly. She shudders and grimaces. She's pale looking. She chooses a small rock crystal and places it on the paper V scale. The practitioner wants to reassure her she's doing really well. So she says, you're doing really well. It's really, you might say, you're really brave, thank you. Would you like to reduce this unwanted brain art? Now remember, the person's activating their amygdala. You want to be really clear, quite slow, absolutely clear. Reduce, would you like to reduce this unwanted brain art? She says yes. She has agency, there is consent, she is choosing. And we know there's neural activity. And we know there's going to be adrenaline and cortisol. So using working memory activities, WMA, and Havening Touch. So a range of fun working memory activities were used around 5 minutes. She knows how to do it now. She's actively involved in doing it. The cues that were avoided were the ones we were working on to do with the dog, the ones that there had been a strong response to, so there's confusion, upset, aversion that we saw, and that she wasn't ready to talk about or explore, that we don't know about yet. So we still don't know about the goats, we know a bit about friends, family and school, not so much about family, but not really too much about school, but we know of it from the history at the beginning of the session given by the parents. We want to avoid the precious topics such as the tea or the scones related to our grandmother, and the leather chair, or going to a wedding, or being given a puppy, or that would be dog as well, wouldn't it? So we'd be very careful. We're really thinking, we're really agile. The cues that we use are related to topics that she responded to more neutrally, movement patterns with the Havening touch, humming different theme tunes with the help of the iPad, imagining picking yellow flowers and heathers, and thinking about bees and making honey, and talking about what working memory is, and this time talking about LTP, talking about the science. She's fascinated, it's really absorbing. It's really good for working memory, and we explore it again. You can explore it again by asking questions about it. And of course, we're doing Havening Touch, which is a working memory activity in itself, and using those patterns. So yeah, working memory activities. And they're going to displace. There is a displacement activity. So we're displacing what was recalled about the dog being run over, which filled the working memory. So then the working memory activities displace that information. So we could think about it like information on books on a shelf, new books being put out a little short shelf and they fall off. So we're filling up the working memory. So then we're at the stage where we're going to find out the results of using event havening. And she's keen to find out because she's done it before. So the practitioner steadies her, slow it down. Practitioner asks what she thought of doing working memory activities in Havening Touch. She says it was fine and we had a really good jam this time. She's really kind of getting in charge. Kids love this kind of thing. The practitioner asks if she would like to find out the results of the process, and she says, yeah, exciting. She's motivated, she's ahead of steam, so you're probably going to be slowing them down a little bit. Same with adults. The practitioner says, okay, would you like to use your cue, the corner, and observe what you notice now? I can ask a few questions to help you once you get going, if you like. So that leaves it open for her to ask for engagement or not. So she says, okay, there's agreement. She cues and she questions herself. She observes and she calibrates. She's quok-tuing, yeah? She's quok-tuing the brain art, her brain art. She shares that she cannot access the image and she feels better. The practitioner can clearly see on the outside that she's no longer rocking back from this cue. Her skin is a different colour, her breathing is different, her shoulders are different, she's not folding in on herself, she's open, and she looks a lot steadier. So I've repeated it again here so we can see it with a V-scale. She would use a V-scale. So she observes and calibrates and she shares that she cannot access the image. She feels better, maybe more like a pine tree this time. So it's really different from choosing that heavy little rock crystal. She's now feels more like a pine tree. So then she accesses again. She wants to check again, and that's good. And she observes this time that is a bit different and happy memories. She thinks it's impossible. She's like, oh, that's like so different. Happy memories of times with her dog come to mind. And she wells up, but in a really good way. She says, you know, she took really good care of him from a puppy, and she just loved him so much. So we've got neural activity happening. Yes, lots of she's accessing this change happening. So she's the tree is now right at the top of the scale, and she describes the tree as being a pine tree, and she says it has a white heart, this sort of sense of all this love for this dog. And there you go. So she's, it might be that she starts telling you about the time they were in the, I've clicked too much, sorry about that, there we go. So we know that some receptors were absorbed. There's the tree with the heart. And there we go, try not to click again. So it might be that she wants to talk to us about the time they were down by the river and they played with the sticks, or they were skipping stones, or they saw the geese, or lots of funny stories. And that's really good. It's really good. So if that happens, you just allow that to go with that. That's going to generate, LTP and getting used to the fact that there's neural changes here and she can access all these lovely old memories. Because it's quite complex, and she's also perceiving the responses in between this time with what happened with the new girl. So it turns out that what happened was that the dog got run over. She was terribly upset. Went to school, was hoping to get a cuddle from her friend and attention from her friend, and it turned out that her friend had now become friends with a new girl, and they'd hooked up. And she just couldn't engage because she was just too upset about the dog, and it wasn't the way she wanted it to be, and she didn't know what to do, and then the whole thing kind of went kind of pear-shaped. And so looking back at that time, reflecting that time, so she's now able to tell us about that. She can articulate it, she can tell us about it. And so she's perceiving, though, her behaviour, because it was out of character, that she was thinking she was horrible. Of course she wasn't horrible, she was just really upset. So, but she's framing it as horrible. So the practitioner's hearing that, the practitioner sees all the other change, but there's still this perception of this behaviour in there as being horrible. So the practitioner asks her if she would like to explore this and describes another havening technique. It's very clear, mark it out. It's another havening technique called transpirational havening. And transpirational, this girl likes plants, so she can talk about the metaphor that we use as haveners about the tree transpiring. That's all going to be fine. So they move into doing some transpirational havening opposites, and the girl works out the opposites herself, and she chants them while using havening touch. So for her, the opposite of horrible is kind and loving, and it's the girl who works them out. The practitioner just agrees and goes, that's an opposite, good. So she goes, she's using the havening touch, and she goes, horrible, kind, horrible, loving, horrible, kind, horrible, loving, horrible, kind, horrible, loving. And then she flips it, kind, horrible, loving, horrible, kind, horrible, loving, horrible, kind, horrible. And then she just starts laughing, and she says that she can access brain art, and it's an image, and that she sees herself. So it's an internal image. She sees herself with friends, and the new girl is there, and she feels good. So this is how brain art can be. We can access, we can recall something awful we saw, like the dog being run over, but we can also imagine. So the neuroscientists tell us that imagination and recalling use very similar circuits and all the rest of it. So she's laughing and feeling really good. There we go. She's having lots of fun with her friends. In her imagination, she sees everybody come together. So she starts laughing, and she says she can access the brain art, and it's an image, and she sees herself with her friends, and the new girl is there, and she feels good. Because she started off learning Amplify Havening, learning about brain art, because we have the frame of brain art, and the brain art frame allows us to be okay with that kind of creativity. She doesn't reject the idea of being with her friends. She accepts the idea, just like she accepted the idea of the big scone with the cream and the heather flowers in it. Because we know about dreams, we know about imagination. And when we frame all of our responses as brain art, it really loosens us up. It can open us up to being more playful. So the segue here is that she's affirming. We're hearing a new language here. It's quite quiet at the moment, but she said, I feel good. And we know, we can recognise, we have all the information about the brain art, the sunny feeling, the tree, the pictures. There's a lot of information there. So the practitioner asks her about this brain art, and she starts to co-oct to it. She questions herself, and she observes, and she calibrates carefully. The practitioner asks her if she would like to increase this brain arc. Okay, so it's increase, amplify this brain arc. This will create more neural activity and more LTP and LTD. The practitioner shares that we can do this, that she can do this using affirmational havening. And she explains what affirm means to make solid. And she uses affirmational havening. So we're using the V skill with the powerful responses. We get that neural activity going where receptors are absorbing, receptors are being made. She's got a big metaphorical tree in the white heart. She's accessing, imagining, being with her friends again, and the new girl liking her, and the new girl getting on with everybody, and then going off and having fun. She feels sunny, expansive, bright. It feels good. So there's your segue there. So there's your seg into affirmational havening, because she says in a low voice, I feel good. The brain art's changed, and that's where you can build on. So coaching forward, the practitioner asks her what she thinks about the session and her experience. So again, you're building LTP. Take the time. Build the session so you have time for this. She says, it's been amazing, and I'm surprised that it's been fun. This is really good because now we've got a new frame on doing brain sculpture, a new frame on self-development. And this is a really good way, it's a really good way to learn with goods. So the practitioner reviews with her what she's learned, and together, a bit like doing the working memory activities, because you've established those kind of quizzes and thinking and stuff, they name cue, brain art, goods, brain sculpture, receptors, havening. This is brilliant. So this is typical of working memory activity. This is very good. It means that the system, the educational approach, and the system of not overloading the working memory by using consistent, common, common language words to encompass big big concepts or lots of information, like brain sculpture encompasses, absorbing receptors, neuroplasticity, but, potentiating receptors. Well, we can just simplify that down to brain sculpture. And as we get curious and interested, we can learn more detail. We start off with a big chunk, brain sculpture, brain art, goods. They're big chunks, receptors, havening. So it's fantastic. There's a good chance that she's going to remember some of these things. And that's what we want, because we want learning to take place. It's all about learning. It's all about neuroplasticity. And she recalls favourites and talks about her favourites now. So this is one of the things about favourites being good, because it's going to you're going to start the session that way, and you're going to end the session that way. So she's going to go out the door thinking about her favourites, remembering who she is, remembering what she likes. And her brain's going to be sorting to find more of those things. Before the session, her brain was sorting to find more risk. Now she's going to be sorting for those things that she likes. So she says she would like to go back to school. Is that possible? She's motivated and she's open and she's sharing. And she would like to make up to her friends, and her mum and dad. And she's thoughtful for a moment, and she realises that she would like a new dog. She has actually, her mum and dad have said that they could get a new dog, and she just blocked that and was angry about that. But now she's thinking that, yeah, maybe there is a dog in a rescue centre and she could love it and care for it. So she's really sorting for the fact that she's a caring, loving girl. So the practitioner's agile, and the practitioner keeps up with the changes the girl's making. And so they don't go back and start talking about, everything, when you think about the trauma. None of that. Practitioner's agile, keeps up with it, understands that neurologically changes have happened and builds on them. And they say, talk to her parents and see when she can go to school. So they don't say go back to school. You say get to school. Yeah. So you keep it framed. Think of the cueing. So yeah, get to school. The practitioner suggests a psychosensory project and a parallel project of making some scones and sharing them. The girl has an idea and says, I could make the scones for my friends and my mum and dad. ... Now, you're cueing what's going to happen, coaching forward. So there she is. So the feedback from this was great. She went to school, everything was good, things worked out as she thought. She made friends with a new girl, things balanced out, things normalised, and it's really good. So I hope that this has been really helpful for you. So there's more information and training about how to use educational approaches, psychosensory approaches, the Havening techniques practitioner training, brain art and brain sculpture training at psychosensoryacademy.com, and of course more Havening information at havening.org.